Hey, what's up guys, it's Jack. So around 6 months before breaking my first world record and the invention of the Not Don, dark times, I know, I made this video called 3-Blind Progression where I talked about the types of methods to learn and when you should learn them, because that was something that wasn't really covered much in any other previous video, at least since like 2012 or something. So that's what I did. And because it ended up being pretty popular, and I figured I might as well make an update, especially after coaching like dozens of people over the course of half a year. I thought a lot of my ideas have changed. Some have like stood the test of time. So I figured I might as well, probably said it already, but make an updated video on it. So here's my recommended 3-blind progression up here. So as you can probably see, which is why I just got rid of it this time around, it's pretty simple. Like start with M2 OP and just this line thing going across with 3 stars. So first of all, I'll just cover what has remained consistent in terms of my viewpoints on things and what has changed. So first of all, emphasis on memo over method and algs. So as you can probably see, if anything, I've made like the list of methods that I recommend learning even smaller than last time. The reason being is that even back in like 2016 or something, back when people like rotated a ton for 3-style and finger tricks were not as fancy as they were nowadays, people that could turn reasonably fast could get, sub 1 with just M2 OP. So that kind of tells me that pretty much all the improvements that you get from your first success, which could be like 10 to 20 minutes, all the way down to even sub 1, like that kind of tells me most of that probably stems from memo related things. So things like tracing, memo, what's it reviewing, and recall. So a huge amount comes from that kind of stuff. And of course, earlier on, the basics such as getting familiar with your color scheme and your letter scheme. So that's why, and that viewpoint has, I think, stood the test of time still. And I focus a lot on that in the early stages and the intermediate stages, I suppose. But Jack, you made an Orozco tutorial like last week. This goes against everything that you've like mentioned in this video so far. Angry reacts only. Well, if you read the description, the pinned comment, and the message I had at the top of the Google Sheet, you'll know that I only recommended for one fairly specific purpose, which is as a placeholder method while learning 3-style algs, so you can start incorporating them straight away. But even for that purpose, I don't recommend doing that anymore, because I think separating the processes, which I'll explain later on a bit more, I think it's more time efficient. And even back when I tried using Orozco myself as a placeholder method, I don't really like using it too much, so I kind of stopped using it and just crammed all 3-style algs very shortly afterwards. Also, everyone just asked for it, so I figured I might as well, and it was pretty easy to explain. So number 2 is to learn from a good list of algs rather than coming up with algs intuitively for 3-style. So point number 2 is to learn good algs from the start. So algs leading towards the speed optimal side of things, but not going too far overboard to the extent of perfectionism, but also not to learn completely intuitive algs. So I think the reason for this is because back in 2016 and beforehand, like the types of algs people use didn't use any E or S slices. There were rotations a lot of the time, and I think compared to the algs nowadays, even if you don't use like the absolute best perfect alg, which I'm not even close to doing myself honestly, and it still worked quite well for me, those algs are significantly faster than the ones you'd be able to come up with intuitively. Like I remember there was this one case that went like, I think you guys might know it if you know 3-style like that. I think the former alg would probably like rotate L prime, do that or something. But like the rotationless alg is like 0.3 or 4 seconds, and this alg is probably above 1. And this might be a bit more of an extreme example, but I feel like the speed optimized algs are maybe like, they feel like twice as fast as some of the algs that I've seen people use in the past. I think starting out, it might be a bit rougher perhaps, in the sense that a lot of corner algs from these good lists have a lot of setup moves and whatnot, and they might seem slower initially compared to some of the intuitive algs you may be able to come up with. Kind of like how in edges you have a bunch of S and E moves which you don't really learn in CFOP, so those algs might start slower initially, but I think ultimately you get the best return on investment if you expend your time on learning algs in like this section here. So my recommendation is to learn from 1 to 3 good list of algs, and try to go too overboard once again, so don't go too far on the other side. But still make sure you're learning good finger tricks. So yeah, now for some changes. So first of all, using M2OP as the new starting method. So from coaching a lot of people, I've noticed that the most popular tutorial by far seems to be JPerms, and some other ones include like my own and SpeedCube reviews, but they all teach alt Pockman for both corners and edges. Back before JPerms tutorial became a thing, so maybe 2017, pre-2017 maybe perhaps, I think the most popular one was Nero Arthurs, and he taught using M2OP from the get-go, and I'm starting to think that's probably like a better start. I think the reason why I leaned in towards using OP as a starting method was because like the algs that you need to use for those are kind of PLLs, and I figured that might make things easier given that you already have prior knowledge of pretty much all the algs, assuming you know some CFOP. But I think the thing is that not everyone uses CFOP. Some people don't know those PLLs yet. And more importantly, compared to M2, like M2 isn't even that hard. Like maybe taking away some like special cases, but even those, like I think people over-exaggerate the difficulty of such cases. And I think especially assuming you're spending like a week learning blind, I think this extra speed you get from trying stuff out with M2, you can probably easily gain over time. And of course, past the initial learning stage. So yeah, once again, just to drill this in, like the swap out for M2 is literally, it's one move, and a PLL is like a lot more than one move, so that does add up, both in the learning phase, but of course over time. And it also means that you don't have to learn M2OP later on after you know OP already. And setups and stuff, while there are more setups, they're like really straightforward, and you can mirror them on both sides too. And there's just a lot of good things to say about M2OP. I'm an M2OP fanboy, if you can already tell. And point number 2 that's changed is that I recommend learning 3-style whenever you want to learn something new. So initially, as people might know from the original video, I had the whole like great rule of seriousness and reach a minute and then learn 3-style. But my thoughts on 3-style have changed in that, especially from coaching, I've noticed that people, unlike what I did, which was kind of just grind down my time to like 1 minute just using M2OP without any really like fancy stuff in the mix, just grind all the 3-style algs and then start using them. So mine was just kind of like use M2OP, grind the algs, maybe try out M2 corners 3-style for a bit, and then grind the edge algs and then learn that. So mine was just like, in terms of the amount of algs you have to learn, it was like this. And I think similarly to learning other kinds of skills in the long run, I think it's just more sustainable and probably a better mentality to have to learn it gradually over time. And given that people have a strong desire to learn new things and not stick to like the same boring old method for an extended period of time, which I've noticed a lot firsthand, it makes sense to learn 3-style earlier on. And yeah, the only real, I guess, hard thing about 3-style is the amount of time it takes. I don't think 3-style algs are fundamentally that difficult to learn. And I think if you channel in that inner desire to learn new things that you probably get earlier on anyway, even though 3-style is a pretty long-term kind of thing, it just makes sense. You can kind of connect 2 and 2 together. And I think it's just the best way to make use of the 2 highest ROI methods, which is M2OP and 3-style. And yeah, I think it just makes more sense to learn 3-style algs instead of Orozco and Eco. Although technically Orozco and Eco are kind of like almost part of 3-style. But once again, I think these 2 methods just provide the best ROI in general. And like if we were to break down the 818 algs for 3-style into like, for example, if you learnt a certain amount of algs like every day for like a couple of months, so let's say 90 days. So first of all, like half the algs in 3-style are like inverses, so that's like 414. Divide 414 by like 90, and that's like 4.6 algs a day, which still might sound like a lot to be honest, but as you'll probably know, 3-style algs, they're all like commutators pretty much, maybe aside from some parity algs and a few other things and weird cases, but that isn't that many to learn. If you were to learn 3-style like alongside M2OP, and they'll get a lot easier over time as you get familiar with commutators too. So you'll be able to learn even faster once your initial perhaps motivation and like wears off. So yeah, I think if you learn M2 OP alongside 3-style in such a manner, that means you don't have to, grind all the algs in like a month and like have no life. You just kind of learn them like naturally over time while you learn M2 OP. So if you do want to, go to get super fast at 3-blind further down the line, you can just very smoothly switch to using corners for 3-style for corners and edges, and not have to grind the algs all in the span of a month or so. So yeah, those are some of my thoughts. I actually wrote a whole script for this video, but as always, I feel like it's more natural for me to just speak out of my mind. Hopefully it wasn't too, wishy-washy, but I'll probably cut stuff out here and there so it doesn't come out that way. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to destroy the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and otherwise, have a great day. Bye.